what I find very exciting is spending a part of my time with business leaders, because I still think that some of the best talent is there. So, for instance, 909 is one of our clients, and they have a very high quality team. And the kind of intellectual stimulation that brings is what makes it worthwhile. I really like this picture, and people say the picture can tell more than 1,000 words. Just want to go around the room, maybe a few hands just to warm ourselves up. What comes to your mind when you see this picture?
Think big.
Think big, yeah. Everybody needs bigger space, yeah.
Change the orbit.
Change the orbit. Nice.
Take risks.
Take risk. Get out of your comfort zone.
Move into a bigger circle.
Move into a bigger circle.
You have to jump, nobody can get you.
Great. Okay. So this is the big stuff, right?
No more negative connotation. So other side of the glass is always.
Okay, great. What do you think that fish is feeling?
Crap.
The guy who is mid-air,
Scared as hell.
what is she feeling like?
Uncertain. Scary.
Terrified.
Uncertain.
Excited.
Excited too, maybe. Fear.
It's a fish out of water.
No, it's a fish out of water. Right? I think that helps set up our conversation, that very often what happens in the corporate world is that we are tutored to talk about the good, grand stuff. Go for it, target, bust it, aggression, and there is no space for what is really happening inside. So we in turn do it to our children or our spouses, and there's no problem with that except that it doesn't work. So if you're in the business of making things work, then maybe you need to take it a little more seriously. So this morning we're going to talk about a little bit that just suppose, this is an assumption I'm making, that some of us wanted to get out of that little crowded glass and want to go into this other world. You know what? It's exciting, it's big, but it's scary as hell. Some people in fancy English call that acts of leadership, right? Wanting to move beyond. And suppose you could take one or two other fish with you, then that becomes truly transformational leadership, that you move things across. But I think one of the things we need to acknowledge is that it's not easy. And perhaps if you have someone with you in that journey, it can become a little bit easier. Just a brief introduction. I think we need to take it aside. For those of you who may not know the background of the organization I work for, we are really an education organization trying to change education, like I mentioned. We work on both sides, on the corporate side as well as with education institutions, especially schools. And I think the part which we are most proud of is that there's a social dimension to our work. We want to reach out to audiences where this kind of work may not go to, and that gives us a lot of satisfaction. I live and work out of Delhi, but we are a national organization and we work all over India and sometimes outside India. For this next hour or so to be productive, I would need a couple of things from you. It would be helpful if all of you had a pencil and paper to just scribble and make notes with. It would also help if you're able to identify one person next to you whom you will talk to a little bit during the session. Yeah? Also, I need a permission. I occasionally like to break into Hindi. How many of you are uncomfortable about Hindi or do not understand it at all? Don't be shy to raise your hand. Okay. Seems all of us are fluent in it.
As long as you don't get poetic.
Okay, stop me if it gets excessive. Great. The reason finding the person is important, so have you kind of shook hands with the person you're going to talk to? Because sometimes in a session like that, you know, people say, okay, talk to your neighbor, and no one really talks to their neighbor. And then you go through the motions. Whereas if you really made that little bit of effort, it would help. It would help. And if you want it to work, then you will have to help me a little bit. Now, in this session, we are going to talk about three things. Yeah. We are going to talk about the journey. Yeah. What kind of journey are we talking about? Whose journey? Yeah, in simple language, I gave it away in the beginning, yeah, the first chart. Whose journey?
My journey.
Your journey, or the fish's journey, right? The fish's journey, and who's the fish in this conversation? Each of us.